Welcome back to my channel, Stardust Stories, where I aim to tell my stories in order to help someone overcome heartache and pain in their lives. By realizing that no matter what your circumstances, you have the power within you to overcome anything. Let me start this episode with this quote. My past has not defined me, destroyed me, deterred me, or defeated me. It has only strengthened me. By Steve Maraboli. The decisions we make in life, either good or bad, are determined by the knowledge and the experiences you had leading up to the decisions that you made. At the time of making these decisions, you think and act out of what you are experiencing at that given time. Years later, thinking back on certain decisions and actions, you realize that it could have been so much different if you had known what you know now. But unfortunately, we do not have the luxury of hindsight when faced with certain decisions or actions that we take. And so we do what we think is best. When I moved away from my old town and started my new life and new job, I thought it would be easy and I was looking forward to it. I was excited by the prospect of finally being at peace, away from all the hurt. But as we all know, one cannot run away from your past or your hurt. It stays rooted deep within us. And until we work through it, until we live up to it, until we are brave enough to stop the cycle, it will follow us forever and wherever we run. You cannot run away from the past trauma and pain. You have to work through it, accept it, and make peace with it. Only then will you be able to move forward. But I did not have that knowledge at that time. I still had a lot of lessons to learn before I was able to start the healing process. The new environment, job, and place to stay was good for me. I had an amazing support system around me, and although it was tough being a full-time working single mother, I was at peace. There was no constant fighting or looking over my shoulder anymore. I was at peace. My divorce became final and I was free. I had an amazing job and the owners of the business were so very good to me. I loved my new job, and my aunt, who lived close to where I was staying, took care of my son in the afternoons because he went to the local nursery school in the mornings. And as she was available, she would cook for us a meal every night. My sister was supportive and we spent so much more time together, which I really enjoyed, as we always had a very special bond. So yeah, in all aspects, my life was pretty good. But then one evening, upon arriving at my flat, there was a bunch of red roses in my zinc. I was shocked and really puzzled. How did they get there? Who were they from? I really did not have any idea how that could have happened. And a couple of days later, there was a box of chocolates on the zinc in my flat. I was getting worried at this stage. Who could have done this? How did they gain access to my flat? Then one evening, there was a letter in my kitchen, and by now, I was really spooked by these happenings. But when I read the letter, it was clear who it was. It was my first ex-husband. How he had found out where I was living and that I was single again, I had no idea. He also didn't say. It was only years later that I found out it was my dad who actually told him, because they still had contact. as we didn't have cell phones in those days, I didn't have a landline and it was difficult for me to get hold of him. But I did phone my dad from work the next day and told him in no uncertain ways to tell the guy to back off, that I'm not interested and that he should stay away from me. Which, luckily, he then did. So, at least it ended as soon as it began. One morning, after dropping my son off at the nursery school and on my way to work, I was in a nasty car accident. This caused my car to be really badly damaged, and luckily I walked away unharmed. But that put me in a very difficult situation, as that was my only means of getting to my job on a daily basis. Thinking back on that incident, it was as if it was the start of a new chapter that would unfold in my life. As my sister was working at the same company that I did, she then started to give me a lift to work every day. But she lived in a different suburb than me, and as I had no insurance or money to get my car repaired, there was no other option as to start looking for another flat in the area closer to where she had stayed, which I did, and I moved closer to her. During that time, my bosses sat me down and said that they would help me to repair my car. I was so overwhelmed, because without their help, there was no way that I could afford to do it on my own. As I said, they were really so good to me. And the magic thing for me was that there was no ulterior motives from their side. Something that I was not used to. They went ahead and paid for the repairs to my car, and I was mobile again, and life went on. I was settling down and for the most part happy. My son and I had a good life. But fate intervened again. My ex-husband obviously came over every now and again to visit my son. And every time I saw him, I realized that I was not over him, that I still had feelings for him. Even though I kept reminding myself about the problems we had when we were together and all the issues there was, I still couldn't help starting looking forward to his visits. And again, in hindsight, I should have stopped those feelings right in their tracks. But as I always say, hindsight is a great thing. He started visiting more and more frequently. And one evening, he arrived quite late, and as my son was already asleep, we sat down and we had a really good talk. And one thing led to another, and he ended up spending the night with me. The next morning, we discussed it, and we both agreed to give the relationship another chance. Not just because we both realized that we still had feelings for each other, but because of my son. He shouldn't have to grow up without both of his parents in his life. My ex was without a job, yet again. And so after talking it over, I told him to move in with me and start looking for a job in that area, which he did, but it took months before he actually got a job. And once again, I was the sole breadwinner and I had to take care of all three of us. But things were relatively good and he wasn't drinking so much and was actually trying to work on his issues and our relationship. He eventually got a job and things became a little bit easier financially and overall, but he did not keep that job for very long and we were back with him being unemployed. And on top of it, he started drinking again. Citing his inability to look after us, making him depressed, to the point where we started having major relationship issues yet again. And I was not going to go there again. I was not going to repeat that cycle. One Saturday morning, I took my son and we visited my sister. My ex was home alone. Upon me returning, I found him in the garage. He had taped his car shut with plastic bags and had a hosepipe in the exhaust pipe. All the windows were closed and he was ready to take his own life. But he wasn't in the car yet, so I parked, I got out of my car. I was furious with him. I just completely lost it. I shouted at him, asking him how he could be so selfish as to want to take his own life and let me and my son walk in on that. I have never in my life been so angry with him. After that incident, things were really not good between us. I was angry with him, and I was angry with myself for allowing him back in my life. How could I have been so gullible as to believe him again, after all the times that he has shown me his true colors? After all the empty promises, I knew him. I knew his ways. How could I have been so stupid? I really did not know how I was going to get out of the situation this time. But as he always did, he stopped drinking and made so many new promises about how he was going to change, how he was going to get a job, how he wanted us in his life. And what did I do? I fell for it again. In the next episode, I will tell you about how I fell for more empty promises and lies, and how everything that happened during the following period would influence me to be the person I am today. Never forget, you are strong, you are loved, and you are special.